Have you ever stopped to truly look at the food on your plate? I mean, really look. Beyond the colors and the shapes, there is a world of stories waiting to be discovered. Every grain of rice, every leaf of spinach, every slice of bread has a history. It has traveled through time and across continents to reach your kitchen. This journey is filled with strange turns and surprising secrets. We often rush through our meals, thinking only about the next task on our list. But what if we took a moment to listen? The food we eat has so much to tell us. It whispers tales of ancient empires, accidental discoveries, the quiet magic of science. The world of food is a universe of its own. It's a place where a simple mistake in a kitchen can lead to a world-famous dessert. It's where a tiny, unassuming spice could once be worth more than gold, launching fleets of ships across treacherous oceans. These are not just trivia or fun facts to share at a dinner party. These are the threads that connect us to our past and to each other. Understanding where our food comes from can completely change the way we see it. A humble potato is no longer just a starchy tuber. It becomes a symbol of human resilience and global migration. A pinch of black pepper is a reminder of epic voyages and the dawn of a new age of trade. In this journey, we are going to explore some of these hidden stories. We will uncover the oddly satisfying lore that lives within our everyday ingredients. Think of it as a quiet conversation with your food. We will ask questions you might have never thought to ask. Why do we cry when we chop onions? What is the real story behind the chocolate chip cookie? How did a fungus transform the way we think about flavor? The answers are often more fascinating and peculiar than you could ever imagine. They reveal a landscape of human ingenuity, cultural exchange, and pure, delightful happenstance. So, I invite you to slow down with me. Let's put aside the noise of the day for just a little while. Let's get comfortable and allow ourselves to be curious. This is not about complicated recipes or advanced cooking techniques. This is about appreciation. It's about finding joy and wonder in the small details. We will peel back the layers of the familiar to find the extraordinary that lies beneath. Together, we will learn to see our kitchens and our meals not just as sources of nourishment, but as museums of history and laboratories of wonder. Let's begin this delicious exploration. Every meal you eat is an invitation to travel without ever leaving your home. Think about the breakfast you had this morning. Perhaps it was a simple piece of toast with butter. That piece of toast carries the history of agriculture, the domestication of wheat in the Fertile Crescent. The butter tells a story of animal husbandry and the ancient art of transforming milk into something rich and lasting. Each bite connects you to generations of farmers, bakers, innovators. It is a quiet inheritance, passed down to us on a plate, a legacy we participate in every single day. These connections are everywhere, woven into the fabric of our daily lives. A cup of coffee is a portal to the mountains of Ethiopia, the plantations of South America. A bowl of pasta links you to Italian nonnas perfecting their dough, and Arab traders who first introduced durum wheat to Sicily. Food is a living map of human movement, trade, adaptation. It shows how cultures have met, clashed, and blended to create new and wonderful things. A single dish can tell a story of war, peace, love, survival. It is a history book we can taste, smell, feel. Our goal is to celebrate these surprising connections. We will look at a quest for spices that reshape the globe and how preservation led to complex flavors we now cherish, like cheese and kimchi. We will uncover strange taboos and beliefs that governed what our ancestors ate. Did you know tomatoes were once feared in Europe, believed to be poisonous? These odd details make food lore endlessly captivating. They remind us tastes and preferences are shaped by culture, science, and misunderstanding. So, let's embark on this journey together. Treat our food with the curiosity it deserves. By the end, your relationship with what you eat may change. You might look at a carrot and think of the Persian highlands. You might taste cinnamon and imagine ancient spice markets. This is the magic of food lore. It enriches eating, turning every meal into discovery and connection. Let's take the first step and see where these stories lead us. Let's begin our journey with something small. Something you might sprinkle on your oatmeal or stir into your tea. I'm talking about spices, a jar of cinnamon, a grinder of black pepper. They are affordable and easy to find. But there was a time when these fragrant powders and seeds were worth more than gold. They were the ultimate luxury, a symbol of immense wealth and power. A single sack of peppercorns could buy a person's freedom or a plot of land. Spices were so valuable that they literally redrew the map of the world. For centuries, the spice trade was a carefully guarded secret. Arab merchants spun fantastical tales to protect their monopoly. Cinnamon sticks harvested from the nests of giant, ferocious birds. Pepper guarded by fiery serpents. These stories were meant to scare off competitors and drive up prices. European kingdoms, desperate for a direct route to the source, began to fund daring and dangerous voyages. Christopher Columbus, Vasco da Gama, were not just seeking new lands. They were hunting for spices. They sailed into the unknown, driven by the promise of nutmeg, cloves, pepper. The quest for these aromatic treasures had a profound and often brutal impact on history. It fueled the Age of Discovery, but it also led to colonialism and conflict. Entire civilizations were built on the back of the spice trade, and others were torn apart by it. The tiny Banda Islands in Indonesia, the world's only source of nutmeg for centuries, became a battleground for European powers. The desire for these flavors was so intense that nations went to war over them. It's a powerful thought. The same spice you casually add to a pumpkin pie once drove empires to conquer and explore. So the next time you open your spice cabinet, take a moment. Inhale the warm, sweet scent of cinnamon or the sharp, pungent aroma of cloves. Remember that you are holding a piece of history in your hands, the reason for epic sea voyages, the cause of great fortunes, the spark for global change. These humble spices are not just flavorings. They are artifacts from a time when the world was much larger, and the desire for a taste of the exotic could move mountains, or in this case, launch 1,000 ships across uncharted oceans. Sometimes, the most beloved foods are not the result of careful planning. They are born from happy accidents. They are the beautiful mistakes. They are the delicious mistakes that happen when things go wrong in the kitchen. Take the chocolate chip cookie, for example. It feels like such a classic, but its origin is recent and spontaneous. Created in the 1930s by Ruth Wakefield at the Toll House Inn in Massachusetts. She wasn't trying to invent a cookie. She ran out of baker's chocolate. She chopped a bar of Nestlé semi-sweet chocolate instead. The chocolate pieces were folded into the dough. She expected the pieces to melt into the dough, but they didn't. Instead, they softened into gooey morsels scattered through the cookie. Guests loved them. The recipe spread in newspapers, and the world followed. Another famous accident. The tarte tatin, an upside-down caramelized apple tart from the Hôtel Tatin in late 19th century France, run by two sisters, Stéphanie Tatin, Caroline Tatin. Stéphanie was overwhelmed and distracted. She left apples cooking too long in butter and sugar. The sugar began to caramelize, almost burning. In a panic, she placed the pastry on top of the apples and put the pan in the oven. When baked, she flipped the pan onto a plate, revealing deeply caramelized apples. Guests were enchanted. The tarte tatin became the hotel's signature, born from near disaster. It can be hard to imagine a world without tomatoes. They are the foundation of so many beloved dishes, from Italian pasta sauce to Mexican salsa. But for nearly 200 years, most Europeans and North Americans were terrified of them. The tomato is a member of the nightshade family, which includes poisonous plants like belladonna or deadly nightshade. Because of this family connection, the tomato earned a sinister reputation. It was grown as an ornamental plant, admired for its bright red color, but rarely, if ever, eaten. It was nicknamed the poison apple. This fear was compounded by a strange misunderstanding involving the wealthy. Rich aristocrats who did eat tomatoes sometimes fell ill and died, which seemed to confirm the fruit's toxic nature. The real culprit, however, was not the tomato itself, but their pewter plates. Pewter contains high levels of lead. The natural acidity of the tomatoes would cause the lead to leach from the plates into the food. The diners were actually dying from lead poisoning, not from the innocent fruit. It took centuries for the tomato to shake its bad reputation and find its rightful place in the kitchen. Similarly, the potato had a difficult journey to acceptance. Originally from the Andes Mountains in South America, the potato was brought to Europe by Spanish explorers in the 16th century. But like the tomato, it was met with deep suspicion. People thought it was strange-looking and unholy. Some believed it caused diseases like leprosy or scrofula. It was another member of the nightshade family, and its flowers resembled those of its poisonous cousins. For a long time, it was used mainly as animal feed or as a botanical curiosity for the upper classes. It took clever promotion and desperate times to make the potato popular. In France, an army pharmacist named Antoine-Augustin Parmentier championed the tuber. He had been forced to eat potatoes as a prisoner of war and realized their nutritional value. To convince the public, he planted a field of potatoes and had it guarded by soldiers during the day, making it seem valuable. At night, he let the guards go home, knowing that curious locals would sneak in to steal the royal vegetable. The plan worked. The humble potato eventually became a staple food that saved countless people from famine, proving that even the most feared foods can become our greatest saviors. If I asked you to name the most essential condiment in ancient Rome, what would you guess? Olive oil, perhaps? Or wine? The answer might surprise you. It was a pungent, fermented fish sauce called garum. This sauce was more than just a seasoning. It was the flavor of the Roman Empire. It was used in nearly every type of dish, from savory stews to sweet desserts. There were high-end, expensive versions made from the blood and intestines of specific fish, and cheaper varieties for the common folk. It was the ketchup, soy sauce, and salt of its day, all rolled into one. The process of making garum was a smelly but simple one. Fish guts, blood, and whole small fish were layered with large amounts of salt in big clay pots. These pots were then left out in the sun for several weeks. The salt prevented the fish from rotting in the traditional sense. Instead, natural enzymes from the fish's own intestines would break down the tissues, creating a thin, protein-rich, amber-colored liquid. This liquid was the garum. It was packed with savory, umami flavor, the fifth taste that makes food so deeply satisfying. Factories producing garum were located all over the empire, but they had to be on the outskirts of towns because the smell was so powerful. The flavor of garum is not entirely lost to us. If you have ever tasted modern fish sauces from Southeast Asia, like Vietnamese nuoc mam or Thai nam pla, you have experienced something very similar. These sauces are made using a comparable method of fermenting fish and salt. They provide that same deep, savory, salty kick that the Romans loved so much. It is a fascinating example of how different cultures can independently arrive at the same culinary solution for creating deliciousness. Interestingly, this ancient fish sauce is also the distant ancestor of one of the world's most popular condiments today: ketchup. The word ketchup is believed to derive from a Hokkien Chinese word, keit siap, which was the name for a fermented fish sauce. English traders discovered this sauce in Southeast Asia and brought it back to Europe. Early versions of ketchup in England were made with things like mushrooms, walnuts, or oysters. It wasn't until the 19th century in America that tomatoes became the standard ingredient. So, the next time you dip a fry in ketchup, remember its long, fishy, and fascinating family tree. Let's move from the pages of history into the invisible world of science. It is a world that exists in every kitchen, in every jar of pickles, and in every loaf of bread. This is the world of fermentation. It might sound like a complicated scientific process, but it is something humans have been doing for thousands of years. At its core, fermentation is a kind of controlled decay. It is the art of inviting tiny, microscopic organisms, like bacteria and yeast, to a feast. We give them sugar and a safe place to live, and in return, they transform our food in the most magical ways. Think about a simple cabbage. On its own, it's crunchy and a little bit sweet. But when you shred it, salt it, and pack it into a jar, something amazing happens. You have created the perfect environment for certain types of friendly bacteria to thrive. These tiny microbes begin to eat the natural sugars in the cabbage. As they do, they produce lactic acid. This acid is what gives foods like sauerkraut and kimchi their distinctive tangy flavor. It also acts as a natural preservative, protecting the cabbage from other, less friendly microbes that would cause it to spoil. It's a beautiful collaboration between human and microbe. This same fundamental process is at work in so many of the foods we love. When yeast consumes the sugars in grape juice, it produces alcohol, turning the juice into wine. When bacteria work on milk, they can turn it into yogurt or cheese. Even a loaf of sourdough bread owes its life to a bubbling, living starter, a carefully maintained community of wild yeast and bacteria. For our ancestors, fermentation was a vital survival tool. It was a way to make food last through a long winter. For us, it is a gateway to a universe of flavor. What is so satisfying about this process is that it's a kind of slow, quiet magic. It's not about intense heat or precise knife cuts. It's about patience. It's about creating the right conditions and then stepping back to let nature do its work. The transformation happens gradually. The flavors deepen and become more complex. A simple vegetable or grain becomes something richer, more nutritious, and profoundly more delicious. Fermentation reminds us that sometimes the most powerful transformations are the ones we cannot see. Every cook knows the feeling. You are peacefully chopping an onion for a stew, and suddenly your eyes start to sting. Tears begin to stream down your face. It feels like a personal attack from a humble vegetable. But what is actually happening? It is not the onion's revenge. It is a fascinating and instantaneous chemical reaction. When you cut into an onion, you are breaking open its cells. This causes two substances that are normally kept separate to mix, an enzyme called alliinase and a group of sulfur compounds. When they meet, they create a new, unstable chemical. This new chemical is a gas. It floats up from your cutting board and into the air. When this gas reaches your eyes, it reacts with the water in them to form a very mild sulfuric acid. Your eyes immediately detect this irritant, and it triggers your tear ducts to produce tears. The tears are your body's defense mechanism. So, when you cry over an onion, you are witnessing a tiny rapid-fire chemical war, and your tears are the cleanup crew. Another strange transformation happens when you cook garlic. Raw garlic has a sharp, pungent, and almost spicy bite. But when you roast a whole head of garlic, it becomes soft, sweet, and creamy. This change is also due to chemistry. The heat of the oven breaks down those same harsh sulfur compounds. As they break down, they transform into dozens of new, milder, and more aromatic compounds. The starches in the garlic also convert into sugars, a process known as caramelization. These small acts of kitchen chemistry happen all the time. Think about the Maillard reaction. This is what happens when you sear a steak, toast a piece of bread, or roast vegetables. It's the chemical reaction between amino acids and sugars that occurs with heat. It is not simple browning. It is a complex flavor creation process that produces hundreds of new aroma and color compounds. This reaction is what gives so many of our favorite foods their deep, savory, and satisfying taste. It's the reason a golden brown crust is so much more delicious than a pale, unseared surface. Every time you cook, you are a chemist, orchestrating these delicious reactions. For a long time, we thought there were only 4 basic tastes: sweet, sour, salty, bitter. These were the building blocks of flavor that we learned about in school. But there was always something missing: the savory, mouth-watering, deeply satisfying flavor you find in a rich mushroom soup, a ripe tomato, a piece of Parmesan cheese. For centuries, this taste did not have a name in the Western world. But in Japan, they had a word for it: umami. The story of umami begins in 1908 with Professor Kikunai Ikeda. He was enjoying a bowl of traditional seaweed broth called dashi. He noticed its distinct savory flavor. He became obsessed with identifying its source. After carefully evaporating large amounts of the broth, he managed to isolate a crystalline substance. It was glutamic acid, an amino acid. He named the taste umami, which translates roughly to essence of deliciousness. He had discovered the 5th basic taste. Professor Ikeda's discovery was initially met with skepticism. It took decades for the scientific community to fully accept umami as a fundamental taste. The final proof came in 2000, when scientists discovered specific taste receptors on the human tongue dedicated to detecting glutamate. This confirmed that umami was not just a combination of other tastes. It was a distinct flavor our bodies are specifically designed to recognize. This makes perfect evolutionary sense. Glutamate is a building block of protein, so a craving for umami is essentially a craving for protein-rich, nutritious foods. Understanding umami unlocks a new level of cooking. Sprinkling Parmesan cheese, which is high in glutamate, on a tomato-based pasta sauce, also high in glutamate, creates an umami bomb. It is why we add a dash of soy sauce, or a bit of anchovy. These ingredients are powerful sources of umami. They make food more savory, more satisfying, and more memorable. Umami is the secret whisper of deliciousness that chefs and home cooks have been chasing all along, even before it had a name. We have traveled a long way on this journey, all without leaving the kitchen. We have sailed with spice hunters, stood beside a cook as she made a delicious mistake, peered into the bubbling jars of fermenting vegetables, and uncovered the genetic secrets that make us taste the world differently. We have explored the intricate customs that turn a simple meal into a complex social dance. From the deep past to the cutting edge of the future, we have seen that food is so much more than just fuel. It is a carrier of history, a vessel of culture, and a canvas for science and art. Each ingredient in your pantry holds a universe of these stories. The humble potato on your counter is a survivor, a world traveler that overcame suspicion to feed nations. The salt in your shaker connects you to ancient civilizations and the fundamental human need for preservation. The coffee in your cup is the final destination of a long journey that started on a mountainside far away, touched by the hands of farmers, roasters, and traders. These stories are not hidden away in dusty books. They are present in every meal we make and every bite we take. They enrich our daily lives, adding layers of meaning to the familiar. The goal of our exploration was never to memorize facts. It was to awaken a sense of curiosity. It was to encourage a slower, more mindful way of engaging with our food. When we understand the journey of an ingredient, we appreciate it more. When we learn the science behind a transformation, we find a new sense of wonder. And when we see the diverse customs surrounding food, we connect more deeply with the vast human family. So, the next time you are preparing a meal, I invite you to pause. Look at the ingredients in your hands. Think about where they might have come from. Consider the transformations they are about to undergo. Remember the long chain of humanity, farmers, inventors, cooks, scientists that brought this food to your table. You are the current custodian of these incredible stories. By cooking and eating, you are participating in this long and delicious history. You are adding your own small chapter to the endless, satisfying lore of food. The next time you sit down to eat, slow down. Look at the food on your plate. Smell it. Taste it attentively. Let each meal be a small, quiet discovery, a moment of gratitude, because the more we understand our food, the more we can truly savor eating. Thank you for joining me on this oddly satisfying adventure.